Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, as you can see, I have a guest with me. Her name is Nancy. She has her own podcast. She's the one who has invited me. We are doing a podcast. I hope everyone is going to check it out. We leave the link in the description box. She has a podcast called Dive In with Nancy. She talks about life generally. But today we are going to focus on employment matters because we understand because of the pandemic, a lot of people are going through lots of jobs. So we are going to deal with the frequently asked questions on employment matters in Kenya.
Can a contract of employment be terminated?
Under the Employment Act of Kenya 2007, there are four grounds that a contract of employment can be terminated. First, an employer can write and can give a notice, which is supposed to be within 14 days, to an employee. Also, an employee, on the other hand, which is normally known as resignation, can resign by giving notice to the employer. Thirdly, an employer can come into an agreement with the employee for the employment to be terminated. For example, when it's an internship for 6 months and it has come to an end. And then fourthly, there is what we call redundancy, where the employer has a position is declared redundant in a company. So those are some of the grounds that termination can be. There's a contract of employment can be terminated.
What is redundancy?
Redundancy is where a certain position in a company has been, like, it's no longer in existence. It has been done away with. For instance, maybe the position of an assistant manager has been done away with. So if you're fired and that another person is employed on that position, that is not redundancy. Redundancy is where that position has been declared that is not in existence anymore.
Get me. Okay.
Under the act, an employer cannot terminate you because maybe they don't like you. There are some factors that have been listed under the act or grounds that employer can terminate you, or else that termination will be deemed as unfair. The first, some of those grounds include misconduct, physical incapacity, or retrenchment, or in situations where the employee has participated in illegal strikes. Those are some of the factors that an employer can terminate an employee, and that will not be termed as unfair termination.
Notice of termination be served.
Okay, a notice of termination is supposed to be done it should be in writing, where the employer gives it to the employee, and they should make sure, for instance, if the employee does not understand English, it should be in Kiswahili or be explained to the employee. It must be in the language that the employee understands. And the time period now will depend. If maybe you're being paid your salary monthly, it's supposed to be, your notice should be 28 days. If you're being paid weekly, it should be within a week, depending on how you're being paid your salary. I hope it's well answered.
In relation to that, so what about these casual laborers? Does the law also protect them?
Yes, casual laborers are also protected. As I've said, it depends how you're being paid your salary. So at least if you're being, mostly for them, they are paid wages daily.
Okay.
So at least if they are being terminated, they should be given a 1 day notice. At least before the end of the day, they get their notice. So for them, it won't be the same as the person maybe who's paid monthly.
Okay.
Yes, and also if they agree, you might have a contract which stipulates more time, so it doesn't have to be strictly the 30 months, the 1 week, or the 1 day. If your contract stipulates more time, that is also what is supposed to be adhered to in regards to notice. But the main thing is it should be in writing and in a language that the employee understands.
So can an employer fire me without giving me a notice?
Surprisingly, yes, your employer can fire you without giving you notice because the act requires the employer to pay you in lieu of notice. So he'll pay you for that period that he didn't give you the notice.
Okay.
So yes, an employer can fire you without giving you notice, but he'll pay you. You'll be reimbursed or refunded back for that period that notice was not given.
If my contract is terminated and I have pending leave days.
If your contract is terminated and you have pending leave days, you should not worry because the act has provided for under section 45 of the Employment Act of Kenya 2007. If you have accrued leave days, you'll be compensated in cash for the accrued leave days that you had not taken before the termination of your contract. So you'll be compensated under the law.
So do these laws also apply to government employees?
Yes, this laws applies to both private and public employees. So because practically these laws are in place for people who don't have a contract or an agreement between the employer and the employee. So these laws come in institutions where there was no agreement or contract.
Okay.
Yes.
So what amounts to unfair termination of employment?
Under the Act, unfair termination is where the procedure under which has been stipulated under the Act has not been followed by the employer when terminating an employee. For instance, the employee is not given an opportunity to be, first the employee is not given notice, and the employee also is not given an opportunity to defend themselves. That will be termed as unfair termination. For termination to be fair, the law has to be followed strictly. Where, for instance, you are given notice, you are given reasons why your employment has been, why you have been terminated, and if it's redundancy, you are well compensated.
I'm an employee and I have been unfairly terminated. What should be my next step?
What I would advise someone who has been unfairly terminated is the first thing you can. Most people have this perception that lawyers are expensive.
Yeah.
Yes, it's understandable if that you have just lost your job, so maybe you may not be having the money upfront. But you can approach a lawyer who will write an agreement where you'll come into an agreement together, and he will take 30% of the court settlement. So after the case is done and you have been compensated you have your compensation for your money, you will give 30% to that advocate. So that clearly means that you don't have to have money upfront. And then in situations where you feel that you don't know whether you'll win that case, go to a lawyer and the lawyer will do a legal opinion. A legal opinion is basically a preview of how your case will be. So the lawyer will give you a probability of success or loss in your case. So at least by the time you're going ahead with that lawyer, you already know whether your probability of success. And also for backlog of cases where you feel that the case might take forever, people have this it's true. Yeah, there's some cases that take years and years in court, but the best thing about employment, it has a court separate for employment issues, employment and labor court. That's the court that deals strictly with employment and labor issues.
Okay. So I think these will be the FAQs today. So thank you so much for your time, for coming to my podcast today. I really appreciate you. Thank you so very much.
So thank you for having me and also featuring in my YouTube. So
Yeah.
everyone, we have had this conversation in her podcast. We are going to put the link. Don't forget to go and check it out. We have discussed it in depth. So don't forget to go and check out her podcast. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video.
Yeah. The link will be in the description box.